Hey guys. Yep, got new glasses. What do you think? Yep, me too. I have not seen you guys in a while. We haven't talked about our book in a while. Last week was Narnia Days, and the week before that we started in chapter 7 in this little book. Chapter 7 is about the passage that says, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Last time we went through, I showed you some history. I got a little nerdy on you. Remember that? I showed you what we think might be the actual valley that's called Valley of the Shadow of Death in Jerusalem. It's in the shadow of Jerusalem's largest cemetery. We think maybe David ran through there when he was running for his life from his son Absalom. He feared no evil, even though he walked through the valley of the shadow of death. We think maybe Jesus might have walked through there after he was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane and being led away for trial and eventually crucifixion. Even though he walked through the valley of the shadow of death, he feared no evil. Before we go on with what we want to talk about this week, last week, that stuff that I just reminded you of is the literal kind of stuff that we could see and we can see and we could touch if we were traveling. This time it's kind of more figurative. So when we say mountains and valleys this week, I want you to think of this. If you were going to go on vacation, your parents came home and said, "Hey there, Johnny, do you want to go on vacation to the valley?" What would you say? I don't know what I'd say. I don't think I've ever been to an actual location spot that was a valley. I mean, there's some pretty valleys, but they're not necessarily vacation spots. What if they came home and said, "Susie Q, let's go to the mountains"? Yes, we love going to the mountains. We don't do it very often, but it's a treat when we do, right? Mountains are beautiful, beautiful, cool, crisp air. Sometimes there's a little bit of snow. Sometimes there's a lot of bit of snow. There's freshwater streams. There's lots of different flora and fauna, plants and animals that you can see. You can go on great hikes. The sunrises and the sunsets are stunning. Mountains are amazing. That's what we mean when we talk about a mountaintop experience or the figurative walking through the valley of the shadow of death. A mountaintop experience is something amazingly good and wonderful and tremendous and memorable and yes. It's a yes experience or wow experience in all the good ways. Mountaintop experience. Can you do that? It's even like the letter M. The letter M has two of these. A valley experience looks like the letter V, doesn't it? A valley experience is the opposite of all of that stuff I just said. A valley experience might be getting in trouble. Don't like that feeling. Ugh. A valley experience might be you have to move schools. Maybe a worldwide pandemic would be a valley experience. Maybe lots of traumatic events around an election would be a valley experience. Maybe getting sick is a valley experience. Maybe someone you know and love is really, really sick. That's a valley experience for them, but also for you. Maybe someone you know and love has died. That's so hard. That's a valley experience. It's really hard. I know it is. It's a real thing and it really hurts. Mountaintop experiences are wonderful and they're real and they're good for you. Valley experiences are hard and they're real, but they're also good for you. God doesn't want us to hurt. But boys and girls, when we hurt, He's still with us. And in that way, they're good for us. Here's the thing. If we think through people in the Bible, they've had mountaintop experiences, some of them, and they've all had valley experiences. And we need to think what those valley experiences did for them. What about Noah? I dare say a worldwide flood might be a hard time. Valley experience. Saul, he got blind and he became Paul. He nearly got killed. Maybe Abraham, who couldn't have a son, and then when he did have a son, he's supposed to sacrifice his son. Maybe Jacob, who happens to be Abraham's grandson, but he thought his favorite son Joseph died and his family had to live through a drought. And that favorite son Joseph, what about him? His brothers pretended to kill him and sold him off into slavery. Remember him? The Israelites had a lot of downs. They worried about their food, valley. They worried about what to drink, valley. They had to wander around the desert for 40 years, valley. But they were with God. Mountaintop. So you can do this kind of thing with all kinds of places in the Bible. Here's something cooler. Not cooler, differently cool. You can do this kind of thing with people you know right now. Grandma, grandpa, teachers, uncles, cousins, friends from church, and yourself. Every human has mountaintop experiences like Christmas time or birthdays or family vacations or getting an A on that test or getting a dress-up day at school. We also have valleys. We lose a pet. We lose a sibling. We lose grandma. Someone we know and love is really sick. We have to move to a different school. We can't even go to school because there's a worldwide pandemic. My parents are really mad. There's crazy stuff going on in the news. Those are valleys, and they're real. They're really hard. Through those experiences, those men learned a lot about God, a lot about who he is, a lot about how he works. They saw him, felt him in tangible ways. When we walk through the valley, we feel God. It's a little like walking around in the dark. If you're holding someone's hand, it's easier to get through, isn't it? It's easier to get through. And God is there with us in these really hard experiences, in these valleys, walking with us. Our author says something pretty cool and very encouraging, I think. He says, it says, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. It doesn't say I stop there, but rather I walk through. And that's just it. God doesn't leave us in the valley. We're not stuck there. We don't stay there. When we're holding on to God as he's holding on to us, he leads us through. What does through mean? It means you go in and you come out. You don't stay in the valley forever. Do you think heaven is in a sad, hard place? No. Heaven is through that valley, the bright sun, the ultimate mountaintop. And we get to stay there. We don't stay in the valley, boys and girls. Our author tells us a couple of other things. Why is it that God would take us through valleys? He says, as a shepherd, a lot of good shepherds lead their sheep in the summer up into the mountains. They go through the valleys by the creek up into the mountains for summertime because it's cooler there and there's lots of vegetation, things for them to eat. And they can let their winter field kind of grow back up and heal a little bit from all the months of the sheep living there. So a lot of shepherds will take their sheep through the valley up to a nice new place for the summertime. They go through the valley because it's a sure way to the top. Also because in the valley there's always fresh water trickling down a stream, and so those sheep have plenty to drink. Also in the valley because there's that fresh water and there's shade some of the time from the mountains on either side, there's plenty to eat. So our author says they're with the shepherd all that time. They've left the sheep that live on the neighbor's yard. The shepherd has left his family. They're really focused on each other. The shepherd is paying very good attention to his sheep and all that they need: protection, stability, guidance, food and water. And the sheep are with the shepherd. They're in a close relationship. They have all of the refreshment that they need, like a cool glass of water, but straight from the source, the mountain stream. And they have lots of yummy food. Lots of good food there in that valley. Those are things that happen to us when we're in the valley, in the middle of the hard, in the middle of the sad, we feel God with us in a new and different way. And being with God in that new way, without the distractions, we're refreshed like a good glass of water when it's really hot. And we're sustained like some delicious protein helps us make it through to the next mealtime. Being with God in that new way teaches us about Him and helps us to last through the rest of our lives until we see Him face to face. We need these valley times. They're hard and they're sad, and God doesn't like to see us in pain, but they're good. They're good, boys and girls. Let me read you this last bit. He says, the basic question isn't whether we have many valleys or a few valleys. It's not whether they're dark valleys or just shadowy valleys. In other words, we're all going to have some hard times and some sad times. And the big question to figure out isn't how bad is my bad going to be? That's not the question. The question is, how do I react to those valleys? How do I go through those valleys? With Christ, I face them calmly. And with the Holy Spirit to guide me, I face them fearlessly. I know that only through those valleys can I get to higher ground with God. And then I'll not only be blessed, but I'll become a blessing to others around me who may live in fear. There are others around us who live in fear. Have you read the end of the Bible? Do you know what's there? Here's what it says. God wins. God wins, boys and girls. He wins. And we are at His side. Even though the valley that we may be in, even right now, is hard, we do not fear. We can be calm and we can be fearless because our God wins. And one day soon, we won't be in the valley. We will have gone through it and we'll be on the mountaintop with God. I can't wait to be there with you, boys and girls. Pray for the people around you and pray for strength to hold tight to God's hand as you walk through those valleys. Have a good week.